I still remember the day Margaret stood in my office, that venomous smile spreading across her face as she clutched the court papers. 15 years of marriage reduced to a division of assets, and she'd somehow convinced the judge she deserved half of the business I'd built from nothing. "You'll be bankrupt within a year," she laughed, examining her freshly manicured nails. "Everyone knows I was the brains behind this operation." The security guard I'd reluctantly called stood awkwardly by the door. I never thought it would come to this, having my wife of 15 years escorted from the building. But the Margaret standing before me wasn't the woman I married. This was someone consumed by bitterness and entitlement after our marriage collapsed under the weight of her affair with my former golf buddy, Richard. "You have what you wanted, Margaret. Please just go." My voice remained steady despite the rage and humiliation churning inside me. "Oh, I'll go. But I'll be back to pick up the pieces when this all comes crashing down." She blew me a mocking kiss before sauntering out, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors I'd had installed just 2 years ago when business was booming. I slumped into my chair, staring at the divorce papers. 15 years together, and she walked away with half of everything, including 50% ownership of Apex Solutions, the IT security firm I'd founded before we even met. Her contribution? She'd handled some HR tasks in the early days and occasionally entertained clients. Somehow, her lawyer spun that into co-founding status. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Paul. "How'd it go?" I didn't respond. What could I say? That I just watched my life's work slip through my fingers? That the woman who once promised to stand by me through anything was now betting on my failure? The next morning, I arrived at the office early, before any of my 26 employees. I needed time to think, to plan. The divorce settlement granted Margaret half ownership, but, thankfully, no operational control. Still, she was entitled to half the profits moving forward. As I reviewed our financials, the reality hit me harder than the divorce itself. We were already struggling. 3 major contracts had fallen through last quarter, clients who'd followed Richard when he started his competing firm 6 months earlier. That wasn't coincidence. Margaret had been feeding him information while we were still together. Our cash reserves were dwindling. 2 major projects were behind schedule. And now, whatever profits we managed to generate would be split with someone actively rooting for our downfall. My executive team arrived for our scheduled 8 a.m. meeting. I could see the concern in their eyes. They'd all witnessed Margaret's dramatic exit yesterday. "So," said Carlos, my CTO since almost the beginning, "what's the plan, boss?" 5 faces looked at me expectantly. They'd stuck with me through everything: the struggling startup years, our explosive growth period, and the recent challenges. They deserved better than watching the company collapse under the weight of my failed marriage. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. "First," I said with newfound determination, "we need to understand exactly where we stand." The next few weeks were the hardest of my professional life. We did a complete audit of our operations, finances, and client roster. The picture wasn't pretty. Margaret and Richard had systematically undermined us from within, redirecting potential clients and overspending on business development that never materialized. "We need to pivot," I told the team after 3 days of intensive review. "We've been competing in the wrong arena." While Richard's new firm was undercutting us on traditional IT security contracts, they were ignoring an emerging market: small to medium healthcare providers desperately needing HIPAA-compliant security solutions. With healthcare data breaches making headlines, I saw our opportunity. "My sister works at Memorial Hospital," said Jenna, our marketing director. "She's been complaining about their outdated systems for years. I could get us a meeting." I nodded. "And my college roommate runs that medical practice group downtown. Let's start there." We worked around the clock, developing a specialized security package tailored specifically for healthcare providers. Carlos and his development team created a streamlined implementation process that could get clients compliant in half the industry standard time. We slashed unnecessary expenses, subletting half our office space to a startup that needed room to grow. Every Friday, I had to send Margaret detailed financial reports, a requirement of our settlement. Each week, I could almost feel her glee as she watched our revenue continue to drop while we redirected resources to our new venture. "You're sending her everything?" asked Paul over beers one night, for months after the divorce. "Every document, exactly as required by the settlement," I replied carefully. "Nothing more, nothing less." What I didn't tell Margaret was that we'd created a subsidiary company, HealthGuard Solutions, that technically existed as a separate entity from Apex. The healthcare security packages were sold through this new company, while Apex appeared to be winding down its operations. The legal structure was complex but legitimate. I'd learned from Margaret's cutthroat tactics. My lawyer assured me it was all above board, though admittedly aggressive. The settlement specified her entitlement to Apex Solutions, not to any future businesses I might develop. By month 5, HealthGuard had signed contracts with 16 medical practices and 2 regional hospitals. We were running lean but growing fast. The employees had taken temporary pay cuts in exchange for equity in the new venture. Their belief in me was humbling. Meanwhile, Margaret's weekly financial reports showed Apex circling the drain. Our original clients were leaving one by one, some to Richard's firm, others to various competitors. On paper, bankruptcy looked inevitable. Then came the call I'd been anticipating. "We need to talk." Margaret's voice was sharp on the phone. "About selling Apex." I agreed to meet at her lawyer's office the next day. When I arrived, she was already seated at the conference table, looking triumphant beside her attorney. "This is ridiculous," she began without preamble. "You've run the company into the ground." I remained silent, letting her continue. "At this point, I'm willing to sell you my shares," she said, sliding a document across the table. "For a very reasonable price, considering the circumstances." I glanced at the figure, a pittance compared to what those shares were worth 6 months ago. "After all," she added with that same venomous smile, "I'm doing you a favor. You can at least try to salvage your reputation before the whole thing collapses." I looked at the contract Margaret had pushed across the table. She was offering to sell her 50% stake in Apex Solutions for just $175,000, about 1/10 of what it had been valued at during our divorce. "I need time to consider this," I said, maintaining my poker face despite the victory surging through me. "Don't take too long," her lawyer cautioned. "This offer expires in 48 hours. Margaret scoffed. "He'll take it. It's the only way to save what little dignity he has left." I signed the papers the next morning. My lawyer had verified everything was binding and final. Margaret would have no claim to any part of Apex Solutions moving forward. The moment the transfer completed, I called an all-hands meeting. "As of today, Apex Solutions is undergoing a complete restructuring," I announced to the team. HealthGuard Solutions will be merging back into the parent company, effective immediately. The team erupted in cheers. They'd been part of the plan all along. The long hours, the strategic pivot, the careful legal maneuvering. Their patience and trust were about to be rewarded spectacularly. By the end of that week, we announced our merger publicly. The press release detailed how Apex Solutions was pivoting to become the premier cybersecurity provider for the healthcare sector, with 16 established clients and 2 major hospital contracts already secured. Our stock price jumped 22% overnight. I was in the office early Monday morning when my phone rang. Margaret's name flashed on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but decided I owed myself the satisfaction of answering. "You manipulative bastard," she hissed without preamble. "You planned this all along." "I learned from the best," I replied calmly. "You taught me everything I know about underhanded tactics." "My lawyer says I can contest the sale," she threatened. Fraud by omission. Every financial report was accurate and thorough. HealthGuard was a separate legal entity with no obligation to report to you. Everything was by the book. "Feel free to have your lawyer examine all the paperwork again." Her silence told me she already had. "Richard's company just lost the West Side Medical Group contract," I continued, unable to resist twisting the knife. "Apparently, they decided to go with a more specialized security solution. I wonder how he'll feel when he realizes you cost him half his client portfolio by selling those shares back to me." 2 weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that Richard had broken off their relationship. The rumor was that he blamed her for not seeing the potential in the healthcare market and for selling her shares prematurely. Margaret had lost both her windfall and her affair partner in one fell swoop. As for Apex Solutions, we're projected to triple our revenue this year. The team that stood by me during the darkest days now holds equity in a thriving company. We just signed our largest contract yet, a regional healthcare network with 32 facilities across 3 states. Yesterday, we moved into our new headquarters. The sign in the lobby lists the names of every employee who weathered the storm with me. Conspicuously absent is Margaret's name, though she unwittingly funded our expansion with the money I paid for her shares. Sometimes when I'm working late, I think about Margaret's words on that last day in my old office. "You'll be bankrupt within a year." She was wrong about the bankruptcy, but right about one thing. The business she knew did cease to exist. From its ashes rose something stronger, more focused, and infinitely more successful. The divorce papers said she was entitled to half of everything we built together. What she never realized was that I was capable of building something far greater without her. And that, as it turns out, was priceless.